Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Digital Dialogue series. My name is Tawana Bain, founder of the Derby Diversity and Business Summit that have pivoted through COVID and civil unrest, bringing you candid conversations weekly. I am super excited about today's conversation. I'm going to do my best not to act crazy on this in this discussion because it's one of those that will make you want to jump through the screen. But before we jump in, I would like to introduce two friends, two people that I think are amazing, doing some amazing work in this community. Hannah Couture, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hello, first, Tawana. Thank you for having us both on the show. My name is Hannah Drake. I am a writer, a blogger, a spoken word artist here in Louisville, Kentucky. I think sometimes people call me a rabble rouser, but I'm someone that's always seeking justice for people. So that's my role.
That's your role. Hi, and my name is Couture Heron, and I like people to know and understand I am actually from rural Kentucky, so I grew up in Madison County in Richmond. And as a Black queer woman, I am now here in Louisville, and I do work with ACLU. I'm a policy strategist. And so for the last few years, the work that I've been doing has been around policy change and changing our laws on the state level.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take a couple deep breaths. I may have to do that a couple times today, okay? So today's topic is being gay and being Black are not the same. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. Being gay and being Black are not the same. And being gay is not a get out of racism free card. And more importantly, I'm going to say this. These are my views, mine alone. Hannah and Couture, they can chime or they cannot. I want to say right now to anyone that is in the LGBT community, shame on you if you have an issue with Black folk when you know what it's like to be oppressed. I'm going to start off there before we even dive in. How this topic came about today is when Juneteenth began to come out and people were like, oh, what's that, right? Because the world is sitting down with all that's going on. What is Juneteenth? There was an eruption on social media from the LGBT community that Black people were stealing their month. Now, okay, I'm a straight Black woman, okay? So for those of us that are not doing this work, don't have boots on the ground and understand the real issues that are transpiring, can you imagine hearing that as a Black gay person? Because that's what Hannah and Couture heard and saw. So, ladies, let's talk about it. Because, to me, I like to call crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about that. Tell me, first of all, your immediate reactions to when you all saw the response from LGBT saying that their month was being hijacked.
Yeah. Actually, I was not surprised. I wasn't surprised at all because I feel, although some people like to think if they are in the LGBTQ community, they can't be racist or say racist things, which of course is not true. A lot of people were not educated about Juneteenth, but being Black and growing up, you learn about Juneteenth. You normally don't learn about it in school. I certainly didn't learn about it in school. But as you live throughout life, you learn what Juneteenth is. And so I wasn't surprised that some people, primarily white people, would feel some type of way about Juneteenth taking place in June. I mean, that's when Juneteenth is.
Okay. And for those that have been living under a rock, let's tell them what Juneteenth is, just in case, okay? They're following along. So, Couture, can you share with everybody, tell us about Juneteenth?
Yeah, so basically, for those who don't know about Juneteenth, Juneteenth is actually the celebration where Black folks were accepted and into our United States of America. So, what was it? 1865 is when they said that we were going to end slavery and all these different things, or not end slavery, but that our world, our independence was created. And that wasn't for Black folks. And I think that what people need to understand is when you look back at throughout history, and even when you're looking at voting and things that happened around that, there was always this time period when Black folks were still not put in the equation. And so Juneteenth is really the celebration of when Black folks were notified or accepted into our country.
And this happened in Texas. They get this notification that indeed the Civil Wars ended and that slavery technically kind of has ended, but we're still kind of just free-ish, right? And so free-ish, because anything, and I'll say this and then we could get more into the conversation, but freedom to me in America always comes with an asterisk, right? And so you're free and we're going to end slavery except for you being imprisoned, right? And so they just transform slavery into mass incarceration. And so really it's still slavery is always ever evolving. Right. So even in the celebration of emancipation, it's you're free-ish. You're kind of emancipated in America.
Not 1776. Okay.
Right,
I want to put that out there because, and I love Regina Jackson, who we had on as a speaker before. It's one thing to not know something. It's a whole nother thing to pretend to not know something. And then it's a whole other thing to just lie. Okay. Yeah. So getting upset if a Black person says, I struggle with the 4th of July because in 1776, we didn't receive our independence.
No.
We did not. Okay. We would like to acknowledge 1865. We would like to acknowledge Juneteenth. Telling yourself that that's wrong is a little baffling. It's baffling, right? And so we have to look at you and say, but why? If we were not free in 1776, why would we celebrate that? Why would we glorify that? Because we struggle with that. Okay. So everybody is going to be on a different end of the spectrum. And I feel that as humans, we should respect a person's feelings. Okay. All right. So now that we've educated those who are under a rock as to what Juneteenth is, let's dive into this conversation. Hannah, you shared you weren't surprised.
No, not at all. I wasn't surprised. Here's the race for me trumps so many things in America and in this world. And so when I think about Pride and it falling in June, that was so secondary, maybe even third or fourth or fifth on my list when Breonna Taylor is shot 8 times in her home. Or Ahmaud Arbery can't jog down the street and he's murdered. Or George Floyd has an officer put his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That it was just not on my mind. What was on my mind is freedom and liberation for Black people. That was at the forefront. And last year, Couture and I celebrated Pride and had a wonderful time. And this year, I don't even think we mentioned it because it's just not at the when you see Black people dying all around you, it's really just not at the forefront of my thinking, and primarily because I'm Black. So before I'm anything in this world, I'm Black, and everybody can see it. I can't hide it. No one has to wonder or guess, am I a Black woman? I'm Black. You can see it all day long. You can see it hundreds of feet away. And so that's always the first thing on my mind.
Yeah, and I think also too when you're talking about if someone identifies as being gay or lesbian and queer, people can speculate. Are they gay? Are they lesbian? They look a little masculine. He looks a little feminine. They look this. They look that. Like, who are they? They can speculate that, but when you walk in the room, what cannot be speculated is your Blackness. Are they Black or not? Yes, I am Black. And so, like for me, and I tell people, I make sure that I say I'm from rural Kentucky because that has a huge input of like who I am and how I live my life and like my life experiences. And so growing up for me personally in Eastern Kentucky, it was always like, oh, she's Black, and that was the first thing. And so I think that for for white gay folks or the LGBT white community to come up in an uprise, it's a it just shows. Yeah, it's a slap in the face, and it just shows that white supremacy is not just this far side of folks who are extreme. It is all folks, and there's all these different layers to it, and it can show up in any type in any type of situation.
Have you all ever had to address a white person from the LGBT community face to face, where you were like, "Wait a minute"? Have you ever had to? I'm just curious. Have you ever had to address somebody because you were so caught off guard? Like, wait a minute, you're fighting for marriage equality, and I'm fighting for justice. So, you know.
I've not face to face, but have online, and it was a huge argument because I said these aren't, Black and being gay are not equal. So these aren't equal things. And this man online got very upset with me. And it took him an entire year later, which I didn't expect. He came back.
Wow.
He sent me a message and apologized. And he said, "You are correct. What you said was correct." But it took, here's the thing, when people have to confront that, the first thing is you're angry. And I very rarely have this conversation, so I'm shocked you got me on this show. The very first thing is, you hate gay people if you say that. You know, that's the very first thing, which is not true. I'm sitting here with a whole girlfriend, you know, and so it's not about, okay. It's not about you hate gay people. It's just about, for me, what is the truth. And they just are not equal. And so people's first line is to get defensive and make it about something else. But if they're willing to go beyond that step, that's how you grow and you change.
Yeah, and I think that whenever you look at the landscape of the gay community here in Louisville, and you look at the different pride events that's happened historically over the last few years, the lack of Blackness in the events, I think that shows that, right? And I think it was last year that a lot of folks from the Black community talked about those things, is that, you know, we're not included in a very intentional way of the planning, or what should things look like, what should it be, and not just as entertainment, right? And so even in the LGBTQ community, the same as the cis world community, that Black folks are normally left out of those conversations unless it's like, okay, what's going to be the entertainment?
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Girl, you just, whoa, if the pastor would have opened up church right now and walked down, okay?
Word right there, that's the word.
Hold on. Because first of all, that was a gut check. Okay, so I got to come back. Because I need to understand how the white man arrived to understanding his mistake, I need to understand, but we coming back to that. So you're just not gonna drop that mic when we move on. What was it that sparked, that was his aha moment? Because we're seeing that happen right now in America, period, with our white brothers and sisters who have finally was like, damn, like, wow, like, whoa, this is a thing. What was his moment?
I think in this, are you talking about all the recent things?
No. The guy that came back and apologized.
I don't know why the light bulb came on for him. But this is what I tell people all the time. When it comes to talking about race and any of these issues, sometimes your job is to just plant the seed. Mm-hmm. Somebody else will come along and water it. Somebody else will come along and take out the weeds. And then somebody else will enjoy the harvest from a seed that you planted. And so my job...
It's like exes, right? It's right. Like exes. I can't stand it. I'm like, I did all that. But
yeah, right.
And
you have to understand in this work, and it could be doing work for Black Lives Matter, it could be doing LGBTQ, it could be doing all the things that you may not see somebody all the way through the process of their growth, right? And so that people get upset and frustrated because it just doesn't happen quickly. And so it took this person an entire year to come back. and say you were correct, right? But all I did was plant the seed. I don't know who watered it along the way, but he
Well, I wish he had his number because I would call him up right now. I need to know. I'm going to need you to write him back and just say, inquiring minds want to know what happened. How did you cross over? Right? I'm really cute. I'm not playing. I'm serious about that. Okay, Katora, the mic drop moment. Okay, you just said a whole thing.
Yeah.
Don't include us when you just need a performance. Okay, because that's really how Hollywood has treated Black people since the beginning of time. So are you? And again, I'm straight, right? I'm straight and I'm Black. So I had not thought about it from that angle until you just said it. So is that what's really happening? Like y'all get included when they need a performance?
Yes, and the community, the Black community last year verbalized that. There was folks who are, Black LGBTQ performers, entertainers, that I'm restating some of the concerns that I've heard from our community. But whenever you go to these events, if you go to Pride or if you've ever been to a Pride, you can see the lack of diversity within the events. And typically when you see the diversity, it is during training. And so from my standpoint, my personal opinion is that those things wouldn't happen if Black folks were included in the beginning of like, what does this look like? What does this mean? Not just, Gay Pride Month, but what does this mean for Black gayness? Like, what does that look like? And then I also think that that's why you see in different cities that folks have been popping up and having, Black prides, right, where you have Black organizers that are organizing their own situation because they don't feel like that it's for them. And I think that when you look at a community like Louisville, oftentimes a Black pride or Black events don't get uplifted because our community is a lot smaller. So it's not going to be the same as on Atlanta or Houston or LA or New York because of the community is smaller in general. But I think that we can do a better job here in Louisville. The LGBTQ community can do a better job of including Black folks in all the things that they're doing from the start.
All the things, people. I'm struggling. Yeah, I don't know if I'm struggling. Like I'm on full struggle mode. Because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But listening to what Katora said, I agree with everything that Katora said. But a lot of people, going back to the whole point of this topic, a lot of people think, well, we have LGBTQ and that's the diversity. And not look at the diversity on the board, right? Or not look at the diversity of who's performing or who's not just here for entertainment. Because they in their minds think white LGBTQ is the diversity, right? And a lot of people do the same thing when they talk about diversity and equity and look at all the white women we have in the room. But white women does not mean diversity, equity, and inclusion because you've left out a swath of women. And so white LGBTQ does not equal diversity because you've left out so many Black LGBTQ and people of LGBTQ of color. But most people, here, let me give you this great example. So I was having this, here I go online. I'm always on Twitter starting stuff. So
yes, you guys, by the way, please follow Hannah. If you need to get riled up, if you're not riled up enough for this fight, go land on her page.
I was on Twitter having this conversation about Pete Buttigieg. And he's, of course, a gay and one of the, I believe one of the first at least out or known gay people running for a president. And I get it. That's honorable. I understand that, right? And a lot of people supported that. But as a Black person, I'm looking at his policies, right? And what happened in Indiana with the police department, because that's my concern, right? And so I'm having this conversation online and a white male says to me, well, shouldn't we at least want to uplift him so our kids can see someone in that position rising that high to possibly be the president? And he said, what does that say for LGBTQ kids? And I said, I hear you, but what does that say to Black LGBTQ kids? What it says to them is you can be white, you can be LGBTQ, and you can create policies that disenfranchise Black people and still rise to possibly be the president of the United States. And he said, I never thought about that. And I said, you never thought about that because when you hear LGBTQ, your first thought is a white person, right? And so it's like the light for him. And so I can't support someone, whether they're LGBTQ or not, if your policies are disenfranchising and oppressing Black people because I'm Black. And so people struggle to understand that. But once you turn the light on and they see, wow, my view of LGBTQ is white, right? Yeah. So, yeah. Look at Tawanna's face.
Tawanna's like, I don't even know. What did y'all do?
Today is not going to be my best performance, y'all, because I'm just speechless. Okay, so I really am a little kind of speechless right now because that's deep.
Yeah, and so most people don't open up their view, and I haven't found the correct language for this, so this could be wrong, and I'll take the hit. But I think there are some LGBTQ in America and probably the world that's just acceptable LGBTQ. You know, we can accept, like some people, and I hope this isn't wrong, babe, will accept me, but not Katora because she's masculine presenting. So she doesn't look the acceptable lesbian. You see what I'm saying?
Or trans people.
Right, or trans people
are often, especially Black trans folks, are often left out of conversations because that's not acceptable. That's not right. And so we can't exclude, like how are we excluding people when we as a community are already excluded,
right?
You know what I'm saying? So it's like
that's a word.
It's like the pedagogy of the oppressed people oppressing people.
I'm just screaming, just something, okay?
And that's a word, and I'm a piggyback with Katora. Katora probably gonna piggyback off what I say. But let me say this, because this bothers me, and this is the last time I'm going to have this conversation. I had this conversation on Line 20. I'm not debating this anymore and defending my Blackness and defending my relationship.
Go ahead, girl.
When I fight for Black, I'm fighting for all Black. To me, there's no, fighting for Black lives isn't a buffet, and I'm going to pick this one and not that one, or they're transgender, so I'm not fighting for them, and they're gay, so I'm not, but I'm going to fight for the acceptable Black person, right? And make sure the victim is acceptable, right? And that's not how I get down. If you're Black, and I say Black Lives Matter, it means every single Black life that falls up under that umbrella. And I don't get to pick and choose and kind of make it convenient on what I want and who I want to fight for. That's not how I get down. That's not how I work at all.
Yeah. That's, again, I will say.
Fall out on the floor. No, you did not just say it's not a buffet, but Hannah, you are so right. You don't get to choose.
No, you do not get to choose. Yeah. And we have enough of that in our world where the
I got my cell phone blowing up. It's like, it's crazy. Okay, my cell phone silent.
Yeah, the media already vilifies us, right? And I wrote this blog called The Inconvenient Victim, right? And so there's the Stephon Clark was killed by the police, and he had said some disparaging things about Black women online. And then people said, well, I'm not going to fight for him. Well, I don't get to pick that. You know, every victim's not going to look or think or act the way I want them to. What happened to him should not have happened. That's where I draw the line. Is this an injustice? And that's what people need to focus on. And that's in our community. You know, we need to raise that up because I see that so often when it comes to fighting for justice for Black people and this a war with Black LGBTQ people. You cannot remove Black LGBTQ from the revolution, or it will be a very empty revolution.
Ooh, I cannot, Hannah, stop it.
Slow down.
Right, slow down, pump the brakes. Okay, so because I'm clear. I'm coming to Black People's Street. I'm coming to our street right now because I'm going to tell you, when I first started DDBS, I got more backlash from my Black folk because of the fact that we were including LGBT, as though we don't have gay Black people in the Black community. Number one, okay? Number one. Number two, we have been marginalized and oppressed for so long that we know how it feels. The fact that we can even look somebody in the face and treat them the same way is immoral.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We get it better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm coming to our street. Now, listen what I'm going to say to you. I'm not telling you that what your beliefs or what your religion, that you need to change it. What I'm saying is you don't treat people differently than the way that you want to be treated when they are still a human.
Yes.
Okay, like we cannot be hypocrites in that regard and expect the world to work in our favor. That karma is you're bringing your karma in the way that you behave on our community. So stop it. Cut it out. Okay. I'm gonna come back because, like you said, I'm out of breath and I ain't even ran nowhere. I'm sitting in my chair and I am literally out of breath. Okay. Let's come back to this buffet concept. Right. And the other thing that I want to talk about, because it gets brought up and we don't talk about it enough, but I want to help break a couple things down. Number one, Black on Black crime, shooting of children. It matters to us. It matters to us. And let me break it down to you. So when we're saying Black lives matter and people quick to say, well, what about Black on Black crime? Well, let me tell you something about Black on Black crime. Our prisons are full of all the Black folk that committed that crime, okay? We don't have to go out and protest that we want you to arrest the person that just killed our Black neighbor or one of our Black babies, okay? The Black Lives Matter is simply because if you can arrest a Black person for shooting another Black person, then we want you to arrest a white person that shot a Black person. Let me just break that down for you, okay? That's just critical. Back to the buffet. Because Lord Jesus. Okay. All Black lives matter. Okay.
All of them.
Come on, Hannah.
And the other thing too, with Black on Black crime is crime. They never say white on white crime, right? They never say that. And so, but they use the language and the narrative is what will tell the story, and the narrative will impact the policy, right? And so they have set this up and then put it into the lexicon of language, of American language. And then even we start using it. So then when they want to start drafting policies around it, around crime, around why you get, 10-1 with crack versus cocaine sentencing, because we have instituted this language of Black on Black crime and super predators and bought into the language of it, never knowing that you're using the language to hang yourself, because after a while they'll take the language and then make policy for it. And so with the work Katora does, I think she's very good at how can I use the language, flip their language on them, and create policies that will now free people, which is what she did with Breonna's law. And you can talk about Tom Wine. All Tom Wine did was put out the language, and we thought, now let's just flip it back on him and create the policy.
Yeah, and Tom, basically when Tom Wine did his press conference, what he said was that there's no amount of drug money, there's no amount of drugs that is worth a human life. And so that messaging is what I use to lead on to end no-knock warrants, because no-knock warrants are only used in drug cases. Like those are the times historically when you look at no-knock warrants and when they've been used and when it's only been in drug cases. And so when you talk about drug dealers, you're talking about low-level drug dealers, because if you're going in and getting a kingpin is not going to be able to flush all the drugs down the toilet anyway. And so you're talking about going in and terrorizing communities, but you're looking for low-level drug dealers. So when we're talking about ending no-knock warrants, we're talking about preserving human life. And so that was when Hannah's talking about the messaging and the language. That's what I use to lean on and say, this is the message. We're here to preserve human life, and that's it.
I have to say, impromptu get together we had last night. Kudos to Heather for bringing us together. I got out of my PJs, okay, because I missed our tech prep, and I'm like, I'm going. But we didn't spoil it. We didn't talk. We were very careful not. But I got to learn, Katora, about the work that you're doing, right? So you've got a lobbyist, you have a poet, a writer, a businesswoman, all these things. I am curious, what LGBT organizations in Kentucky have extended an invitation for you all to serve on their boards? Oh, hell. I can't. I cannot. Kentucky. Okay. You've got two very capable, smart, connected, LGBT fierce women, and there's been no invitation for the board. It makes me think about what I said last night, that I'm going to start declining invitations from organizations that want me to come speak so they can check the box on what they're doing as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion when you are not walking the talk.
Right.
I will say that there is a local organization here that's in the beginning stage called Sweet Breeze, and my memory is correct, they are an organization that is going to be housing and helping young LGBTQ folks, and I have been in conversation with them about their process and what they're doing. So I have had that conversation. I'm not sure where they're at with their program, but for those watching, Sweet Breeze, I definitely believe that that's the name of it, but they are going to be an organization to help support young LGBTQ folks, specifically those who've been kicked out of their homes. So I'll just
awesome. Well, kudos to them. Look, somebody said, run for office, paint your plan, come to Civitas board. I for everybody that's on Facebook, I do want you to know there's a whole nother audience backstage. I feel bad. I haven't even had a chance to look at their comments because I can't keep up with these two. But this conversation is one that most certainly needs to be had. Yeah. So you guys are a couple, right? Yeah. You've really taken up this fight together. And I honestly, for any couple, having somebody that's on the same page as you is like half the doggone battle, right? So you have each other in this fight. And so one is the front, one's the back. Y'all are covered from both sides, but you guys are seeing so much out there on the front lines. And I do want to say this, because I don't want to discredit this. We're not here to say they're LGBT, number one. I am a huge advocate. So we're not here to beat up on all LGBT people. We do understand that there are those that are out, that are marching, that are using their if they're white, their privilege, that are asking how they can get involved. But we have to address the reality that there are some within your community that, quite frankly, have racist tendencies or are just full racist. Okay, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. Again, going back to the topic, being gay is not a get out of racism free card.
No, not at all. And a lot of people think, well, I'm gay or I'm LGBT, whatever, and so I can't be racist. But you can be LGBTQ and be racist. You can, and we've seen this, and you can be LGBTQ and hold up racist policies. There is no get out of racism free card simply because you're part of another marginalized group. If you hold up policies and systems that are oppressive to Black people, you being LGBTQ is not at the forefront of my mind. The first thing I'm focused on are your policies and what you are doing in this community. Even here in Louisville, what are you doing for Breonna Taylor, and how are you using your voice to bring awareness to Breonna Taylor? Because there are many white LGBTQ people that are privileged, and you're in very privileged spaces. And it's not just enough to say, I'm going to hold me being gay in this space, and that's enough. That's not enough as a white gay person. And here's the other thing I want to say, and so a few weeks ago, they, I believe like they upheld where you couldn't be fired from your job if you were LGBTQ. And they traced it all the way back to the Civil Rights Act. Because when Black people rise, everybody rises. When Black people benefit, everybody benefits. So years later, this law came into place, right? And people looked at it and said, well, we can't discriminate against people because of their sexuality, all because of what Black people did back in the 60s and marching and fighting for freedom. That was on the backs of Black people. And I believe that happened in June, right?
Yeah.
So while we're talking about the celebration of June, you are celebrating and benefiting for something that Black people fought and died for so many years ago. How you cannot put these two things together blows my mind.
Yeah, and I think that people don't put it together. And I think people don't put it together because of their privilege, because they haven't, necessarily had to deal with the same things that we have to deal with in the workplace. Like I was telling someone, I think last night, that I mentioned that at 40 years old, I'm finally making enough money to where I can save money at the end of the month. And so, that says a lot as a educated person with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. So there's these levels of things that as a Black woman, as a Black queer woman, that I will always have to, that those things are things that I have to fight for. And I believe that my white counterparts, my white gay counterparts, lesbian counterparts, LGBTQ, transgender, that they will never have to fight that, because like I said, when I walk in the room, my Blackness is the first thing that people see. People can assume my gayness.
It's remember last night when I mentioned my struggle right now with all the things coming out, right? Because again, we've suppressed, I literally posted about this morning because it was just weighing so heavy. We've suppressed so much because we were on autopilot. Okay, we know we're Black. We know that we're not going to get this, or we're not going to get that, or this stereotype, or whatever. So we've suppressed so much. But now that we have to face it every single day, now that people have so many questions, now that people are still continuing to say things that sound just dumb, okay? Like, why would you say that when you see everything that's happening? I have had to come to terms with the reality, like, where would I be? As hard as I work, as much as I've invested my time, as much as I have defied odds, but where would I be if I were not looked at as a Black woman in my country?
Yeah.
So where would you be? The degrees, the knowledge, the work that you've invested. Do you know how many lobbyists that are building multi-million-dollar houses? Okay.
Yeah.
Where would you be if our society embraced your talents and your skill sets as much as they do others? Where would you be? And that has been a struggle for me.
Yeah, and I think that I've never really thought about it that way. But as we sit in my apartment right now, and I've been talking to Hannah about purchasing a house, I think I would already own a house. Like, I think that that's one easy, that is like, just owning a house. Like, I know that I would already own a house, and I think that that's just one small, when we talk about what's the low-hanging fruit, I think that that's the one thing is like, we wouldn't be sitting in my apartment. We would be sitting in my house. And so I think that what I try to get people to do, like sometimes there's these larger concepts, but I always like to talk to people and show people these smaller things because it makes sense. And so when you ask me that, I think one of the things is that I would have a house, and I wouldn't just now at my age with my talents, all the things that I've accomplished, my education, that I wouldn't just now be like, oh shit, I got a lot of money in the savings account. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so it's not.
If she wasn't Black, she'd own a house, people. Think about that for a moment.
Yeah.
Own a house.
Yeah. And I think,
where would I be is a very real question. And it's one that I have struggled and I have grappled with. And I have found myself in tears when I have to wonder, where would I be? Right. With the amount of, as hard as I work, where would I be?
And I think to go along with that, when I think about where would I be, or the things that Couture said, when you mentioned Pride last year, and I believe that was Jason Garner leading that up. And of course, we all know Dr. Story and all the wonderful work that Dr. Story has done for years. One thing that I am passionate about, and even more so, especially even when you think about the Black LGBTQ community, is owning your stuff. And I think often people see trends that Black LGBTQ people do and take it and monetize it and benefit from it. And so then we don't have the luxury of even profiting from our own work, because it's often stolen and uplifted by white people. And then they get the homes, and then they get the profit, and they get the money for the startup. And often it is a Black person. I always say, if you see a good idea, go look for the Black woman behind it. She's somewhere.
Ooh, Jesus. Anna?
She's somewhere, and my job and how I feel better this year is bringing that to the forefront, right? Bringing that highlight. There are amazing Black LGBTQ people that can be highlighted, right? And it doesn't need to be filtered through whiteness for America to buy it or purchase it or ask them to come speak. When you have amazing Black LGBTQ writers and authors and chefs in every facet of anything you can think of, there's a Black LGBTQ person that does it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, because
probably not. Let me stop.
No, and I'm going to challenge it, whether they're watching on Facebook right now, whether they're behind stage, or whether you end up coming across this 2 weeks from now. Okay, there's going to be that one person that heard what you just said, and they'll say, "That's not true. We don't need it to hide behind a white person." Okay, but we know that to be true historically, even with artists in the past. They would not put them on the face of the album, or they would put a white looking group on the cover because they knew that it would sell better. But I'm going to challenge whoever just asked themselves that thought in their head, whether you're watching live or in the future, if we're wrong, okay, about that product, would you right now take Hannah and Couture and ask them to be the face of your product? And if you say no, okay, if you have to say no to yourself while you're alone in your home, because I always keep it real with yourself first, then we just proved that point. I'm gonna keep going.
I'm gonna say something. What's funny, and I'm not gonna say the group, but there's this product that I've been using. It's a local product, and I was like, "Ooh, I should reach out to them." I haven't seen any type of advertisements that they do, but I love this product. I'm not gonna say who it is, but I was like, I should reach out to them and tell them to let me be their brand ambassador, just because I love it. And Hannah's like, "Why you got this? Blah blah blah." I'm not gonna say what it is, but now that you said that, I am going to do that and see what that. I'm gonna see. But really, I was, because I'm like, I'm buying this, and spending all this money, and I really like it, and I don't know if other people know about it, but I believe in it. So I am going to do that as myself and reach out to them and see what happens.
I hope they're not watching. Okay. And I really do, because this is going to be funny as hell. Yeah. And I need you to tell me how that goes.
Yeah,
because
I sure will.
You shoot it down. Tora, look, I think we starting a whole lot of stuff on this.
I wasn't meaning it's like, seriously though, like me and my sister were having that conversation because she turned me on to it, and now I can't, like, I've got it in my house right now.
We might, if this goes left, we're gonna have to do a whole nother one of these. Right? Just to talk about what happened. Okay. All right. I'm gonna behave. I am going to behave. Okay. So, Hannah.
Yes.
You're writing.
Yes.
Last night I called you my quiet, loud friend. Because if you are ever out somewhere and you see Hannah, you would think she's so quiet, right? You go to her blog or her Twitter page and you're like, wait a minute. Okay, what? Let's talk about your writing as a Black LGBT woman and how it is received online?
Well, I started writing my blog back in 2016, late 2016, I think.
Where can they find your blog?
It's called writesomeshit.com. And it actually went quite well, but in my writing, I always challenge people to be honest and be truthful and to face themselves. And so that I felt like as an LGBTQ person, this was just something I was not being truthful about. And that bothered me because I don't challenge people to do something that I would not be willing to do. So I wrote a blog last year called To Thine Own Self Be True. And when I told my mom that I was, and this was before I met Keturah, but that my mom calls my lady friend now.
Comedy.
But before, years ago, I told my mom I was dating this woman, and my mom said, the only thing she said to me was, to thine own self be true, Hannah. That's it. And so that always stayed with me. And I felt like if I was challenging people to face themselves when it came to race or came to talking about any tough issues, then I just needed to be honest and put this information out into the world. And I did. And truthfully, no one said one thing. No, besides good. I'm glad that you're not carrying that around anymore. People were hugely supportive. Although, on my social media, I still have people that say things about LGBTQ people, and I'm thinking, why are you following me? But
you know why? Because it goes back to the same reason why there's white people that have issue with the Black community, but they're comfortable with this one. Right. That's it. That's why. Right.
Yeah. And go ahead. I want to challenge people, and that will just free up my friends list, and that's fine. You can exit stage right. That's fine with me. But I want to challenge people. I don't want people to see me as Hannah's that acceptable LGBTQ person. I don't want to be that in your life. Because I like I said, I fight for everybody. I try to stand up for everybody. And I feel if you have a problem with one LGBTQ person because of their sexuality or their gender or whatever, then you would seemingly have a problem with me. And so I don't discriminate when it comes to what I'm going to like and who, and I don't do that. And so I don't
just want to ride that bandwagon. They feel as though, oh, she's got an audience, so therefore I'm okay with this one.
Right, I'm okay
with this problem.
Yeah. And I don't want to be that. I'm not this mascot or this thing, and you can point to and say, it's the same way, but the same thing with Black issues. Foremost, when I tell people, you can't just say, well, look, I'm not racist. I follow Hannah on her blog, and I'm not racist. I follow Hannah on Instagram. That doesn't not mean you're not racist because you happen to follow Hannah. That doesn't mean anything to me. Are you speaking to your family? Are you working to bring down systems? Are you challenging an oppressive system? Are you looking at policies? Are you using your voice for the benefit of others? Are you using your influence? That will impress me, not I follow Hannah on Instagram.
But I think that's the typical when you see folks who are racist or who really are deep into white supremacy. They always say, I have that one, here's my Black friend. Like, let me introduce you to my Black friend. And so
if in 2020, if you have less than 5 Black friends, I'm gonna need you to exit stage left.
Yeah.
In 2020, if you have less than 5 Black friends, I need you to exit stage left because you are not putting in the work.
Right. And I know we're almost out of time, but quickly, when you think about education and everything we've learned, Black people are always taught about white America. White people must be intentional about learning about Black America, Black LGBTQ, LGBTQ of color, people of color. You have to be intentional about seeking out that information. You have to be intentional about having Black friends and Black LGBTQ friends, because most people, and especially how Louisville is divided, Black people are just quarantined typically to past 9th Street. And so in order to even see sometimes other Black people, you have to actually come out of your neighborhood and actually go see Black people. You know,
like, wow.
And I also think that what's important, like as we're talking about the LGBTQ community, that it was a trans Black woman, Marsha P. Johnson, she's the one that really got the LGBTQ community right started. Like it was Marsha P. Johnson, that it was her work that she did years ago, and the death of her that is why we're seeing LGBTQ rights in the way that we have. Like she was fighting for that years ago, and so just for folks to exclude Black people or the Black voice out of the LGBTQ community, I mean, I just think that just it mirrors what our nation has done, whether it's in the straight or cis community, whether it's in the LGBTQ community, it's the same.
So I want to bring this fast fact back, okay? If you want to see Black people, leave your neighborhood.
Leave your neighborhood. And here's the thing that they will often
drive to an area.
They're all doing the same thing.
Black people.
Yeah.
You have
That's
to
fact from DDBS.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I mean, and I'm looking at JP, who's tuning in, is like, it's pathetically sad that you have to say that.
Yeah. And it's the truth. It's how this city was intentionally designed. 9th Street Divide was put in intentionally to keep what they called undesirables out of downtown. That didn't just happen. That was man-made lanes put in there to keep Black people out of downtown. So it was made intentionally. And so if you live in the East End, typically there aren't very many Black people around. And so what you perceive as Black or even Black LGBTQ is what you've seen on TV, because you've never, and you would find, just like we were speaking last night, me and Couture are some of the most regular, kind of common, boringest people that, but
approachable, right? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And people, but they don't know that. They have this perception of what two lesbian women would look like living together. And we're really just like two normal, regular people. That's what we are. Right?
Just two human beings, folks.
Just two human beings, yeah.
I'm still over here tripping that we had to tell people if they want to got to leave your neighborhood. You got to be willing to do that.
You got to be willing to do that.
You got to be willing to do that. Yeah, I think about all the times that I left my neighborhood and I went to other neighborhoods too.
And you have, and the sad part about that is we've always had to. And so when I talk to institutions here in Louisville, we've talked to the ballet and everything, and so we're going to get a bus and we're going to bring the Black people into downtown to see this great thing at an institution. Why not just take it to them? Why not just cross 9th Street and take it right to that community? There's beauty in that community, but when we spoke about language and earlier, the language that this city has constructed is that you can't cross 9th Street. Like you're going to go to a whole nother world,
Well, and some of that is because they've been taught to be afraid.
Right.
They've been taught that if you go past 9th, all this crime is happening.
Right,
and
right.
All of a sudden, you're going to be raped or robbed or shot or whatever. So the very first thing, right, is, we spend so much time in life learning things that we want to know. We want to learn how to sew. We want to learn how to knit. We want to learn how to cook. We want to learn how to do makeup. So we seek it out and we learn how to do it. So if we truly want to learn the Black culture, then you have to take a step to do it. And everybody shouldn't have to hold your hand, because if you were able to learn other things on your own, why should we have to hold your hand to do that? And I think that's how you begin tearing down those biases and those things that you were taught that were not true, that were not factually true. One of the things that I noticed when I came here, coming from upstate New York, I didn't come straight here from New York. I was in Miami first. But when I came and I drove down through the West End, I was like, oh, okay, this is the only place I've ever been in America. Even though they're so segregated, you had a white hood.
Yeah.
Like literally like calling people, because it was just like, oh, okay. So, the West End is not just Black people.
Right.
That's the other thing that we, is really important, is that's not all the type of people that are there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could, whew, it is 2:55 and I do not know where the time went at all. I don't know where it went at all. Ladies, can you, because we only have 5 minutes left, and I do want to end on time for those that are watching. If you are on Facebook and you're streaming, definitely hop backstage, because we did have Jedi cover networking today. So there is no charge. You get to network and meet everybody. And especially if you haven't seen a Black person, actually meet one, okay? It is what it is. So we got 5 minutes left, but the topic today is being gay and Black are not the same. So can you give some final thoughts, comments? Also, please share with people. We dropped your Twitter as well as your website, Hannah, in there. Keturah, if you could share where people can connect with you. If you're an LGBT organization and you don't have any diversity and you've been saying, well, we can't find anybody, the truck stops here, okay? Bus, truck, whatever. Can tell them where they can find you. And a few last words.
Yes, they can find me on Twitter at it's just at Keturah Heron on Twitter. Just my first and last name. And then my final words is that I would recommend non-Black people who are in the LGBTQ community to right now really get engaged with what is happening not only here in our city as we fight for justice for Breonna, but really take the time to understand what we're seeing across our nation of the different injustices that Black folks have been seeing, especially and across the nation. We've been seeing a lot of trans Black folks being killed. And so I think that if they are looking for something specific to get involved in, I would recommend them really looking into Black trans lives who are being killed and brutalized by police and other folks across the nation, and that's where they can plug into.
Thank you.
My name on Twitter is Hannah Drake 628, and that's the same for my Instagram. And I piggyback everything that Keturah said. Certainly, if you are white and LGBTQ, I would still challenge you to always look at your heart. Like we said, it is possible, very possible, to be racist and to be LGBTQ. Those things do not have to be separate. So just as a person, challenge your heart and your beliefs and see where you stand. And if you stand on the side of wrong, then make a commitment to do better.
And I will add one more thing, is that make sure you all look up Tala Wilson. She is a young Black woman who does a lot for our Black LGBTQ community. And she is on the front lines right now with the work. She's got a program that she does called Diversity at the Table that she's been doing for years. And so if you're looking for someone else specifically to support, I would recommend you all seeking out her and supporting her work.
How do you spell her name, Keturah?
Tala Wilson, Wilson. Tala Wilson.
And you said it's Diversity Table?
Diversity at the Table.
At the table.
Yeah.
I've always said, if the tables that you occupy, whether it be at work, whether it be at the dinner table at home, whether it be at the social tables when you're out hanging out with your friends, if you don't have diversity around that table, there is some serious filters going on in your life that is not allowing you to look at the world holistically. Start with your tables. I love the name of what it is that she's doing. All right, it is 2:59 and I do not want to stand in way of networking. Okay, you two ladies, I have a feeling that this will not be the last time. This conversation was enriching. I love it when I attend one of my events and I walk away with a whole lot to chew on and to think about. So I'm going to tell you all really quickly how networking works. In Hopin, on the left side of the screen, you will see a red live button where you see networking. You will click that button, and when you're ready, hit ready for your camera. And you'll have one-on-one dialogue with someone randomly on the screen. And if you two want to continue the relationship, whether it be business or personal, if you both hit connect, the blue button at the top of your screen, that person will show up in your dashboard. I like to say, think of it as business cards that you collect when you're at a conference or a trade show. So with that being said, I won't stay in the way, but I do want to leave a few final remarks. What you heard today, being gay is not a get out of racism free card. And although we share some of the same oppressors, white queer folks must come to terms with the fact that they can play a vital role in making progress in society for their Black and brown brothers and sisters. All communities struggle in some way with race, and the LGBT community is no different. Racism has always played a role in the relationship between white and Black queer people. Blacks often feel as though LGBTQ rights have been whitewashed, while Black queers are still fighting for survival. The reality is, why not acknowledge the hypocrisy in that, and let's fight the good fight together. We will see you back here, same time, same place next week, where we've got a panel of comedians that are going to have us cracking up. We're discussing humor and human rights, and we're doing so in a very comic way. Thank you so much for tuning in to DDBS Digital Dialogue. I look forward to seeing